Name's James Crawford. I'm the chair of this committee, and we'll just go around the room very quickly so that everyone knows who's who. We'll start with Lauren. You're at the top of my screen.
Hello, my name's Lauren Price and I'm a Democratic Services Officer.
Thank you. Julia?
Thank you. Hi, I'm Julia Finino, Community Resources Programme Manager.
Great. And Megan?
Hi, I'm Megan Harnedy. I'm a Development Officer in Community Resources.
Thank you. John?
John Delandris, Councillor for Stoke Bishop.
Thanks, John. Henry?
Henry Mashala, Councillor for Stoke Bishop.
Josh?
Josh Lerner, Local Transport Manager.
Thank you, Josh. Martin?
Hello, Councillor Martin Fodor for Redland Ward, and can I add, I'm aware that Councillor Feehans, also Redland, has been out of town for a meeting, so I'm not sure if she's going to get here in time.
Okay, thank you, Martin.
Yeah.
And Stephen?
Hi, I'm Stephen Williams, Councillor for Westbury-on-Trim and Henleys.
Thank you, Stephen. And finally, Nicholas?
Hello there, Nicholas Gaines, Westbury and Henleys.
Thank you, Nicholas. And I see you're still on the way home. So just on the
Temple
yes.
So I've got to the city at least.
Well done. And Caroline, if you could just introduce yourself quickly.
Yeah, Caroline Gooch, Westbury and Henleys. I'm not well, so I'm gonna go on to hide my ugly face and I'll just listen.
Okay, well, hope you get well soon, Caroline, and remember you can still ask questions, of course. So thanks everyone. So moving on to apologies, we've got an apology from Fee, as Martin's already flagged, and I've had from Emma that she's running a little bit late, but she's planning to join us. But I think apart from that, that is a full house. Just moving on to declarations of interest. Does anyone have any interest they need to declare today? Fantastic. So now we move on to public forum. So we had a couple of items for public forum which missed the deadline, and I understand, speaking to officers, that they have been kind of referred to the Economy and Skills Committee as the relevant committee as well. We also don't have any members of the public here today, essentially that's kind of what we'll be noting in terms of public forum. So we'll move on quickly to our kind of main agenda item today, which is the update from various Bristol City Council departments. We'll be starting with the city transport update, which I believe Josh will be providing us. If I take it over to you, Josh, I was wondering, are you going to take questions, and would you like questions at the end, or would you like them dotted throughout?
Yeah, questions at the end. I'll literally give a 5-minute update just in terms of what's happened and what's going to happen, hopefully. Then happy to take questions for sure. Yeah. So I thought it might be worth giving a bit of an update on the existing schemes we've got, which I updated on last time. So there's been a little bit of movement in the last few months. We've completed the construction of the Canford Lane pedestrian crossing, which is a long time in the making, to be honest. And also Cranbrook Road pedestrian crossing is sort of substantially complete. We've got some snagging work to do, which we're on site with at the moment. So that's positive. I guess the main existing scheme we've got at the moment is outside the county cricket ground. Currently looking at sort of when's a good time to go and do the works. The drawings, proposals are all done, but we need to do it outside of the main sporting season in the winter, because it would involve some road closures to do the work. So we're currently working with the ground to try and find a suitable time to do that. And the other schemes that are complete, actually down Primary School Bollards and the Belbarn Road scheme, which I think I updated to you on in May when I visited this committee in May in person. So those are the broad updates on the existing schemes. But as you know, we're about to go into, following this fallow year, we're about to go into this new phase of our committee schemes of 2026, which will be starting with the the mapping tool, which we'll be using to, well, via yourselves and your constituents to tell us where the issues and suggestions for next year's schemes can go. We're looking to put in a demo of the tool in sort of early mid-October for all councillors to attend, so we can actually show you the functionality of it, which will give you a bit of information about the back end element of the tool, so you can really kind of from day to day look at what people are telling us, and from that it'll be about October, November that mapping tool will be live, and then in December my team will be lined up to analyze all the suggestions that have come through, all the trends, and for each committee we'll be providing a very high level report about the high level analysis of what people are saying, what people want addressed, and then as a committee you can take that report and decide sort of what priorities you want to focus on for funding next year. What's different about this year, I guess, is that we've now got, from the local transport committee paper that got approved in July, we've got £300,000 for development funding, for seed funding, essentially for next year's scheme. So it's the first time we've ever really had that, which means I can commission all the relevant data, the quantitative data, to go with the mapping data that we've got to really get a really rich data set about what people were saying, and data to back that up, so we can then go into community workshops in February with really good basis to draw up some proposals that we think are going to be are going to be good and achieve all the objectives that we need to achieve for the area. Once we've got an idea of the proposals we want to take forward, I'll be taking another paper to Transport Committee next year, drawing down some more funding if needed. I think one of the key challenges really is to figure out the distribution of funding. So as you know, some area committees have more Section 1 and 6 CIL funding than others. So how we draw down CAS to sort of I guess level that out is a really important piece of work. So what I'm doing at the moment is working with my data team to figure out a way we can fairly apportion CAS and any other match funding we manage to get across all our area committees. Once we've done that piece of work, we'll be presenting it to you. It's a tricky one because you've got like different sizes, different populations, different demographics, different levels of deprivation, different levels of PTAR, i.e. your connectivity to local public transport. So all those things we want to sort of take into account when we're figuring out the apportionment of funding to each area committee. But what we want to make sure we do is make sure that we can deliver schemes that are going to have a big impact. And to do that, we need more money because some area committees have 85, 90k, which will hardly get you a build out in the current climate. So we want to make sure
we've got less than that, Josh. I think we're about £55,000.
There we go. Yeah, there we go. That's not going to get you much. So this process is all about showing that we're as an area committee, we're thinking a bit bigger. That allows us to then tap into more funding streams, and Clean Air Zone funding will be part of that. But I also want to identify other pots as well that we could tap into if we have proposals that are achieving more than I guess really kind of hyper local issues. We need to sort of expand that out to a wider area to attract that match funding. So that's what it's all about really. It's a new way of doing things this year, and I think maybe we need to treat this as a bit of a trial year. There'll be things that work well, there'll be things that won't work so well. So I think after we've done this process, we can come together as a committee again and go, right, what do we need to change? Did it work well? What worked well? And a bit of lessons learned, and then refine it for the following year. And hopefully then we'll have a really nice system that will flow a lot better. But the key thing, as I said from the committees in May, is that I want to get stuff done much quicker, but I want them to be much more far-reaching and evidence-based. That's really the key thing for me, evidence-based, and having this seed funding will allow us to get the data to match the mapping and the intelligence we're getting from the local area. Happy to take any questions on that. I'll stop there. But yeah, feel free to throw any questions my way.
Lovely. Well, thank you very much, Josh. And I've seen Emma has joined us. Just to note, Emma, we are recording this session. I hope you're okay with that. Okay, fantastic.
Great. Sorry,
Thank
I was
you.
late. I had a doctor's appointment.
Not a problem. So, Martin, you were very quick on the draw with a hand raise. So, if you want to take it away.
Sure. Thanks very much. Thanks, Josh.
Mm.
Really good to hear there'll be a tool we can use. Really looking forward to seeing how that works. And you said it can be used to sort of gather scheme proposals, and then there's funds, which is really valuable to get the evidence. I can think of several immediately in my ward where there are years and years of requests for action on things like rat running and road safety issues. And there is already some data. Firstly, how will we link, previous data from, traffic cable counts and so on, and also how we can draw up proposals using that evidence so that we can develop schemes. And then secondly, in terms of letting the public know, we have lead-in times for community magazines that are quite a few weeks ahead of any month where the story can be read. So it's already well past the time for October stories to be placed in local magazines. Can we make sure we've got plenty of notice for activating that tool and letting people know about it so they get a good lead-in time, get the story out there when it's needed? Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll get a URL for the website as soon as possible. I think to answer your first question, so the mapping tool is called the street improvements tool that's actually been in place for quite a long time, but it's been citywide. So the one that we launch in mid-October/November will be focused on the area committee that you're commenting on. But what we will do in the report that we provide you in December is also show historically what the trends and what the feedback is, and then also what people have said during this consultation or whatever we want to call it. The workshops that we do in February are going to be the really critical part of this process, because in that workshop we'll be saying, this is what people are saying, this is what the hard data says. Let's come together and figure out how we can form some really good proposals for the area based on that evidence. All the data that we've had historically, we'll be bringing that together as well. I mean, obviously things like traffic counts, anything beyond, maybe 4 or 5 years old, but anything pre-COVID, I think would be deemed as out of date, and I'd want to get some fresh traffic count, for example. But anything relevant that we've got historically, we'll bring that into the mix with the workshops to make sure we've got the best data that we've got available.
Fantastic. Can I just ask, is that counts as well as speed? Is there a way of getting speed data too?
Absolutely, for sure.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks very much, Martin. Got a question from Emma.
Yeah, thank you. I went to the briefing the other day, and the interactive tool looks great, and I think it's going to be really sort of useful for those streets and areas that have wanted specific changes in their street for a long time. It sounds like before February it would be really good to do some good community and resident engagement. We've kind of started that process in Bishopston already. We've with streets that have we've got that sort of existing relationship with. Will there be any kind of resources or tools or things that we can use to sort of help with that engagement, sort of any briefings that we can sort of show residents in particular, or guides for them to how to use the tool or anything like that?
Yeah, so we were going to obviously provide a demo for councillors for the tool before it launches. I guess we could it's probably a good point, actually. Maybe we need to almost put together a really high-level manual for constituents to use as well when they're using the tool. It's probably a good idea. Absolutely, Emma. And anything else you think might be useful, my team can support. I think obviously the reports that we do for the committees, obviously based on the mapping exercise, I haven't really given much thought to whether you want to share that. It was more to sort of inform your priorities, really, and what you want to prioritise as an area committee. But that could be something useful to share. I guess it's just data. It's what people are saying, so I don't see people can see it anyway. So maybe that could be useful as well. And yeah, anything else that you think could be useful, let me know, and I'll do my best to help for sure.
Great, thank you.
All right, thank you, Emma. And over to you, Stephen.
Hi, yeah. Josh, it was just a question about 20-mile-an-hour zones. I think when we last met as a committee, I think we fed back some streets, certainly in Westbury and Henleys, that we thought would benefit from having a 20-mile-an-hour limit put through. I think you said at the time you'd look to get a collection of these and do one big TRO. I'm just wondering where you were with that.
Yeah, good question. So we've got a team on it. We've got a team of an engineer and two officers on that. And at the moment, we're still, I guess, analysing all the locations we've got. We've got quite a few to go through. What we're trying is what the kind of key bit at the moment is making sure that the road safety strategy that's coming forward. We've got the task and finish group coming up soon, linking that strategy with the 20-mile-per-hour project as well, just something we're giving a bit of thought to. We want to get this done as quickly as possible, but we want to make sure that it ties in with the strategy when it comes forward. I said to the area committee last night that we'd be in a better position to give you much more firmer proposals and timeframes in the winter, bearing in mind it is nearly winter now. But I think in sort of December, January time, we'll be able to sort of give you a firmer detail on when we think we can get them in. It'll be hopefully easier projects to do rather than big civil engineering projects. So I'm optimistic they'll be kind of quite kind of straightforward, but they never are straightforward whenever I say that. But yeah, I think next time we meet, when we next due to meet, Julia, do you know? Is there meetings over the winter?
There's one on the 30th of October, isn't it?
Yeah, that'll be the formal meeting, November.
Yeah, I'm happy to keep providing updates, Councillor Williams. But yeah, just be reassured, we've got a dedicated team on it. They're on it, and I'm happy to give updates as and when required. But at the moment, we're still, I guess, analysing and commissioning a bit of data to back that up as well.
Did you say there was a new task and finish group on road safety being set up, or?
It's the one that was yeah, that's right. It was the one that went to Transport Committee last week. It was just agreeing the sort of the scope of the task and finish group, which was supported, and we're going into that very shortly. I think the first session is in the next couple of weeks.
But is 20-mile-an-hour going to be? Is that in their remit? It'd be quite odd to have a task and finish group triaging 20-mile-an-hour applications.
Well, no, absolutely. We're keeping it separate from that. But ultimately, when you start talking about road safety, 20 miles per hour does get discussed. But the actual work stream that's come through from the locations you sent us, we're keeping that separate. But we're just conscious it does relate to that as well. But what I'm really keen to do is not make sure that we get tied up with that. Otherwise, we'll be another couple of years before we deliver them. I'm very keen to sort of keep that separate so we can get them in ASAP. Is my sort of take on it.
Thanks.
Lovely, thank you, Stephen. I think I've just got one question myself, Josh, and then I think we'll be able to let you go. Just in terms of your data collection, I've got one or two residents in my ward who do some data collection of themselves for traffic counts through the TELRAM system. I was just wondering if there's will your kind of system be able to kind of feed into that? Will their data be kind of useful to you? Will it be able to feed in, or is it slightly different requirements?
So I've used TELRAM data in my previous role in Lambeth in South London, and we put a lot of resources in TELRAM. It's really, really useful. But the problem with TELRAM that we found is that at night time, it doesn't pick up the relevant counts that you want. I don't know if they've upgraded their software, but we actually had to use some new sensors as a result, because at night time it was just, in the winter you just weren't getting the data that you needed. So it's really useful. I see TELRAM data as being a really good way of validating data that is covering the same area. It could be a really good way of like cross-checking the data that we're collecting is useful. If we haven't got any data where the TELRAM sensors are, and we're not planning to, then we could use it absolutely. We'd probably have to look at locations and the context, James, but 100% maybe we should be using that where we can. And if you've got residents that are keen to contribute that, you can look at them online, can't you?
Yeah,
the
it's
10 mile data. Yeah, it's
open
open, right?
access. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really useful. So it'd be good to know where they are. I mean, I guess there's probably a dashboard, a public dashboard which shows that, right? So, okay,
Yeah,
that's really useful.
I can share that with you after this.
Great.
That's obviously triggered another question from Martin.
Yeah, thank you. Well, firstly, one clarification, which is that I mean, most of the area will already be 20-mile-an-hour limits. Are we talking about possible schemes that implement limits with physical measures to turn them into 20-mile-an-hour zones? The second question is about road safety projects going back a long way, which cross boundaries. So the accident record justified a substantial fund being allocated at 1.4, say the junction of Gloucester Road, Zetland Road, Cheltenham Road, and the corner of basically Redland Ward, which is now opposite Ashley. It was all in Redland Ward at the time. It got the money. And that fund was then never spent on a project there. It was taken away and spent somewhere else to finish something. So there's an outstanding road safety hotspot, a junction that is really complicated and a lot of people find really dangerous and take a chance, and a lot of near collisions, if not actual ones. The accident record was high, the collision record. How would we deal with cross area projects, including ones where there was strong historical evidence?
I can answer the first one. The one you just mentioned, I'll defer to Julia or such like. But I think the type of intervention we do for 20 mile per hour will purely depend on the context. So part of the work we're doing for 20 mile per hour now is almost like a criteria that we'll apply for roads, so we can understand what we think is the proportionate intervention. And I think I guess the physical element of it would be applicable in certain situations. What we're trying to do is develop a criteria that we think makes sense in terms of what we're trying to achieve. So absolutely that is on the table. Some occasions would just be signs and lines, but it depends on the context. So hoping that will be acceptable. In terms of cross boundary, good question. I don't have an answer to that, to be honest.
I mean, that junction got national funding for road safety. It just got spent somewhere else to complete another project.
Let me look into that, Martin, and I'll get back to you because I'm still relatively new. That was before my time, so I can find out the history for you and give you an update.
Thank you.
Yeah, lovely. Thanks very much, Josh. Well, I think that's everyone's questions. So thanks very much for your time. I'm sure we'll see you at the October meeting or beyond, really.
Yeah. That's good.
Lovely.
Thanks all.
Thank you. So I think we'll move on to our next update is for the waste and neighbourhood enforcement. So my understanding was that this was going to be brought to us by Ken. However, Ken is not yet here, unfortunately. Julia?
Thanks. Susie Felton's here from Parks, if we want to let Susie in first, and then because I don't think Ken's here yet.
All right. We'll move on to Parks first, and then we'll see if we can get Ken a bit later. Let's crack on with Parks. So we'll do Parks first, and then waste.
Susie should be coming in now.
Lovely. Hi, Susie. Hope you're well. Just to let you know, this session is being recorded, so I hope that's okay with you.
Yeah, that's fine.
Fantastic. So if I could, over to you, if you could give us a brief update on parks and green spaces, that'd be fantastic.
Okay, I'm going to hand over. Richard's just coming in.
Hi, Richard. The session's being recorded. if that's all right.
Perfectly fine. Thank you. Okay, I'm just going to get a bit of an update, actually, a bit of a follow on from the kind of briefing we did to all members last week. So what we presented there was that we are trying to put some information together in an accessible way for you to get information to help you make decisions on where you spend your devolved allocations of SIL. So we discussed providing condition data where we have it, which will build over the next couple of years, but it's largely confined to play at the moment. Providing information about managing for nature and how our managing for nature proposals need to overlay strategically with the local nature recovery network, and how that's going forward. I also talked about providing information on grounds maintenance, what we do and where we do it, and I'll come back to that in a second. And yeah, any kind of strategic information we can bring to bear, such as the provision standards for green space that we have adopted in our parks and green spaces strategy. So we will probably create some kind of map-based system. We're working on that now, which means you'll have access to maps which then have embedded in them data which you can access, and we'll try and keep that live. That's our kind of direction of travel. It's slightly complicated to put together, but hopefully easy to use. So it's not ready yet, but we are working on it. Just in terms of grounds maintenance, because I know area committees have said they would like to be more involved, I guess, in where there are changes to grounds maintenance. So what we're doing at the moment is we did quite a big review last year to update our baseline information on grounds maintenance. What I mean by that is we updated where we have grounds maintenance features across the landscape, how many they are, and what our regime is in terms of what we do and how frequent we do it on them. We remapped all of that, which is a very big exercise. We are using that information to drive a kind of in-time system where we push jobs down on a tablet through to operational teams, so they know what they're doing and where they're doing it. We do that kind of manually now with a system which is tried and tested over a long period of time. But it enables us to make quick changes and send that down to teams, and it enables them to feed back information from site. So the obvious information when a job has been completed, but other information as to why a job may not have been completed. And that information is useful for me to share with my internal clients, because we provide a grounds maintenance service for internal landowners. So we're rolling that out. It's rolled out in the south of the city, so we're well into kind of trying to see how that operates and creating dashboards. We're implementing that now in the north of the city, and then the central and east of the area city will come next. Now, the ideal product at the end of that is that I can provide access to you to more real-time information about grounds maintenance and how we are doing in any given year. But I will flag that I'm very conscious of a bit of a risk that, because we are so influenced by some external factors, the weather mainly, getting our communications right, aligned with that information is really critical. So that's something that, once the information is being driven through to us across the city, we'll start to look at and understand what messages we need to give out. So obviously our resources go down a little over the year. We might have ad hoc works that go up and down throughout the year, so our routine grounds maintenance gets diverted off to ad hoc work. So there are various factors. So hopefully I'll provide you with something which you will find useful, and I'll certainly provide you with something that you will find useful in terms of your area committees and allocating funds. And obviously our first iteration will be what it is, and then we'll improve it as we go along with feedback from yourselves. Just coming back from Matt to managing for nature for a second. So in terms of the changes that are going on in the grounds maintenance world at the moment, most of those changes are being driven by the managing for nature agenda. So in other words, trying to reach our 30% of council land managed for nature. We have a Manage for Nature pilot project which is running, which has been part funded by the Combined Authority, which has been running this year and into next year, where we are changing some of our grass cutting regimes in a number of sites and experimenting effectively about how easy or hard it is to do and what machinery and equipment that we need to do it and how well that works, etc. So if we're looking at a wider rollout. So we are making changes on sites at the moment. Where we think we should consult locally, we have been doing so, but it's not a one size fits all. We don't always consult on those changes. We need to make some changes strategically. And in terms of where we are driving change, I mentioned the local nature recovery network. So what that is a kind of regional map, if you like, of where it would be a good idea in terms of getting the most out of enhancing biodiversity, that we drive change in terms of management for nature. And those are our target areas. So that map overlays with Bristol. So we're driving change in those areas and in increasing habitats and enhancing habitats in those areas for maximum benefit. But I said in a previous area committee that I'm conscious this is a two-way process and we will be getting requests from communities and potentially yourselves to make changes. So it doesn't rule out change that it's outside of the local nature recovery network. Indeed, we still encourage that. But in terms of us being proactive from our end, that's where we will focus our efforts. And you will begin to see that change feeding into the grounds maintenance regimes and the map-based information we're able to provide you. I shall stop there, I think.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Richard. Okay, so Susie, did you have anything else to add, or should we go to questions? Or sorry, I wasn't aware how you were going to divide the conquer.
I was going to give an update on current projects, which there aren't any current projects in area committee 2, but there are, and I was going to, but I can do it after the questions about updates on the current proposals for area committee 2, but I can do that after the questions on this if you want.
Yeah, we'll take a couple of questions and then we'll come back to you then. So if we go to Emma.
Thank you. Susie might have just answered my question with that, so I'm just going to check. So one sort of specific project that we're aware of that's happening in our ward on Hallfield Common is we've had some communications about a sort of nature pond being has been commissioned, and I just wondered, is that part of this? Is that completely separate? Is the funding secured for that, or is that something that we're going, we should sort of keep an eye on in terms of the funding?
That's part of the Manager for Nature pilot that I mentioned that was part funded by Combined Authority. So as part of that, we're putting in 7 new ponds in various spots around the city, and Hallfield Common is one of those.
Marvellous. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Emma. Martin?
Yeah, thanks very much, Richard. It's all sort of really positive to hear about that. One of the things that people do like doing in their own very local sort of streets and corners is very small nature areas. And I appreciate you're mainly talking about grounds maintenance. Who should we speak to about areas at the corners of streets, around trees, in streets and so on, like the tiny little plots that people do fairly informally, but we need to kind of get them on the map so they aren't cleared away, is one thing.
Yes, so indeed. So obviously the green space in the city, if it's council-owned green space, comes under a number of different landowners, and highways will be, a big one of those in terms of very local small sites outside houses. So our process of being able to change our map data and say to a grounds maintenance team, do something different in this space will become much more live. We can make that change kind of overnight, and when those jobs sent out to the operation teams, hopefully then they'll know there's a change live and they will avoid or change what they do. So that's one thing that we hope is going to work. It's always quite difficult to encourage operational teams to do exactly what you need them to do, because they've been doing sometimes they've been doing the same thing for 20 years, and you have to kind of break that habit sometimes. But also the other thing to bring up, I think, is that that we are successful. I'm sure it's been reported to in our Nature Towns and Cities bid. So working with lots of external partners, really excited about getting that going. And a big focus of that will be about trying to encourage local communities to come up with local nature plans, and to provide an easier way for people to make changes locally and get agreement with the council, to make that kind of portal into the council easier and less bureaucratic than perhaps it is at the moment. So that project is going to run through 2026, 2027, and very excited about that. And that will hopefully start to provide very real pathways to making those changes and make them much more easily.
So kind of watch this space almost for little things that communities can register or like commit to do.
It is a little, but what I would say is you could use Fix My Street to make proposals. And if you go onto the councils, if you go onto the parks web pages, there is an improve your space, or do you want to improve your space selection you can make. And if it's parks land, that will come through the customer service centre to the right area team, and they will get back to you.
Sure, but that's in parks.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. All right. Thanks very much, Martin. Over to you, Stephen, and then we'll probably head back to Susie if nothing else comes up.
So this is wearing my Westbury and Henley's hat rather than my Public Health and Communities hat for parks. But on the point of new ponds across the city, Richard, you mentioned there's 7 new ones, including Horfield Common, which is I think probably inside your ward, James, but is right opposite mine, Nick and Caroline's as well. But I was wondering, what are we going to do about ponds we already have in our communities? So Canford Pond has been a long-running saga now of dealing with the infestation in it and restoring it to so it looks good, but also is wildlife haven as well. So are we going to be looking at existing ponds as well as bringing in new ones?
Yes, so I guess the wider response to that a little is that you will all know that the city has, quite a large footprint of site of nature conservation interest, including our local nature reserves. So when we're managing for nature, meeting the criteria for managing for nature is sometimes about having an active management plan in place so that we are more proactively managing those spaces than we maybe currently are. And the funds that we do have are going in to try and encourage and enhance volunteering through a new ranger activity. So we will be trying to more proactively manage our SNCIs, and certainly the riparian and water habitats that we've got in there. I think the pond at Canford is probably it would be outside of that because it's a very formal park. So I guess we're kind of on our own a bit, working with that area team that Stephen, to try and improve that space. So we're on our way with that, I would say. We've had a bit of a problem to tackle. It's better than it was for sure. I guess it's a case of what's next in terms of implementing a new habitat there.
Okay. Thanks very much, Stephen. Right. If we then come back to you, Susie, as well, just to talk about those future proposals, if that's all right.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, so there's 3 currently in AC2. Seamel's Nature Recovery Project. So Seamel's Meadow, which is one that we're going to put in a proposal. I haven't done that yet, but we're going to write up the proposal, but work closely with the community, I think, on the delivery of that. I think because of the status of the group. I know that Megan's been working quite a lot with our nature conservation officer on how this will be delivered, and I think it's going to be delivered under our kind of umbrella, but I think the community is going to be involved in that. So that's that one. And then Old Sneed Park, the lake there, which has a kind of I can't remember how many years, 10-year silt removal kind of program. I was trying to get this delivered as part of our maintenance regime, because it is something that that is on that. But I think we're looking to the group are very keen for it to be done through this. So I think and again we will put in the proposal for this to get done under through Parks. And Westbury and Henley's new play equipment. This one it's been a little bit tricky to because I think there's 3 or 4 play areas that have been highlighted to need improvements to updated equipment. And what I was going to do was just put an amount in because I don't know how much money the area has to put towards this. So it was very much kind of how much can you afford, I suppose, and how far it can be spread. So that's that one.
Thank you very much, Susie, and that triggered 2 immediate hands.
Yeah, I did.
Nicholas, this was your application, so if you...
It was indeed. I think I've had one email that says Parks Department are going to contact me at some point, and then no further emails. So if you want any discussion on this, Susie, I'm right here and have been waiting for your team to get in touch as promised.
Okay. Yeah, that's that. Yeah, okay. Well, we can have that conversation. I mean, it is very much dependent on how much money there is available, I think, in the area committee, on how much can be achieved.
Yeah.
Yes, although I imagine that the cost of the equipment is a set scale, and if you were able to share that, then I'd be able to see what's a proportionate ask.
Okay. I mean, it's to refurbish a play area, like a full play area these days, it's anything from about 180,000 to kind of 250, 300,000.
That wasn't the bid though, which is good because we don't have that kind of money.
No, exactly. So yeah, to update the equipment, I think, which was what the bid was.
The bid was to install exercise equipment for adults.
Oh, in all the parks?
Yeah, I think something's got lost in translation here.
It
was
has,
quite
doesn't it?
specific for one piece of adult exercise equipment, which should have been quite cheap.
Yeah, I think just on this one,
I think I've read the wrong. Yeah, I've read the wrong application.
Yeah, so I don't think that this will necessarily get resolved now. I think what might be beneficial is if Nicholas and Susie, if you liaise separately, just to kind of talk through whether we can get some of that exercise equipment and whether we can get some of that rough pricing ahead of the committee on October. It did pass the stage 1, even though it didn't have a price tag attached at the time. But yeah, if
I'll send you an email, Councillor Coombs.
That would be helpful.
Yeah, and just say a few days that are good for me.
Yeah, and then Richard.
Yeah, just to say we are actually installing some similar equipment elsewhere in Blaze Estates, so we should have some up-to-date pricing we might be able to share.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Well, if I'm not seeing any hands, and I've just seen Ken's come in, well, I think then I'll say thank you very much, Susie and Richard, and I think we'll move on to the kind of waste update, if that's all right with everyone. Just to note, Ken, as well, welcome. The session has been recorded, if that's all right.
Yeah, that's no problem.
Thanks, everybody. Cheerio.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks. Well, if it's the floor is yours.
Right, okay. Well, I suppose I'll start with a collections update. So, a number of you are probably aware we've had serious collections issues for about 18 months, 2 years, culminating in last Christmas where the performance really suffered. We have been working with Bristol Waste, and there's been some long-term changes that have been required. And what we are seeing now is apart from last week where we had some vehicle issues on the refuse, we're seeing a trajectory which is a continued improvement in the collection service. Now, your area of Westbury and Trim, Redlands, and the northern areas were worst affected because of the logistics, which is you're further away from Albert Road, and so if you lose any time, you're losing time, and then you're travelling further. So the productivity in the rounds is far more affected. What we have now seen is that the recycling bulking facility in Avonmouth is allowing quicker turnaround for your vehicles, which is then improving the situation. One of the other things that we've got in place with Bristol Waste is that in October they'll be doing deep maintenance at Albert Road, which will lead also to an improvement in the reliability of the baling equipment, which is a bit of a single point of failure until the MRF facility came online in Avonmouth. There is an issue with that the collection fleet are coming to the end of their life, and we are, as Martin and James are aware, we are taking committee recommendations forward for the renewal of that fleet this year, this Christmas. What Bristol Waste are doing preemptively for the refuse fleet, because if you imagine a refuse collection vehicle, it's metal rubbing on metal every day. It's operated several times a day with abrasive things like food waste, which has got acid in the food, and other things that residents put in their rubbish, which acts like a grinder and wears the metal away. What that then leads to is issues where the hoppers don't work for emptying bins, and we have to do ad hoc maintenance. Bristol Waste is starting the maintenance regime now, which is proactively taking those vehicles off the road to improve the reliability of those vehicles and give them extra life. A bit like Trigger's broom, you're basically taking off the brush bit and replacing it with a new brush. And that will help massively with the reliability of the refuse fleet. We on sort of an engagement and street scene enforcement aspect, the enforcement officers, or a couple of the enforcement officers, were at the university freshers welcome days, giving educational material out to try and engage with, to get a smooth move in with the service. And I think if we look at the move out period, which was seen in June and July, actually I've received very minimal complaints, and we're getting a more smooth move in a move out period with the way that Bristol Waste are providing additional bins, and we're targeting our resources and also enforcement. I mean, I'm happy to hear of any acute issues you may have experienced in your areas, but as far as I'm aware, it actually went pretty well this year. The enforcement team have also been using Fix My Street, which is a new web portal that was implemented in February. What we are seeing is that it is making residents, it's really improving the way that residents report their fly tipping, and we're seeing more reports coming in. We have had issues where because of funding cuts, we haven't had a third fly tip removal vehicle, and that is predominantly impacted mainly on the HRA estate, because it's not part of Bristol Waste core service. It's not part of the highway. It's private land, so it's treated slightly differently. A bit perverse because it's council land, but the HRA should be paying for a service for that. So I'm actually renewing that as part of the golden motion, and we've got a proposal we're taking through to accommodate that. But in the meantime, found some budget to keep an additional fly tip removal vehicle on to keep the fly tips moved and prevent a backlog of fly tips occurring. I'm happy to take any questions if there's any particular issues you're experiencing.
Great, thank you, Ken. I'm actually going to jump in there before you, Nicholas, because chair's prerogative. I was recently on the website because I had to renew some of my kind of bins and boxes, and I noticed there was a bit of a shortage of some of them. I was wondering if that's been resolved or if that shortage is kind of still ongoing.
So, this is I'll be honest, this is a major bugbear of mine that Bristol Waste never buy enough stock to last for peaks of season, and the stock management has been an issue to date. Working with the new ops director, who is bringing in leadership and he's more process driven, so that it's not about the individuals doing stuff, it's about they know their role within the chain. There's a new procedure Bristol Waste have undertaken long-term procurement for bins and boxes, and they're buying more rather than reactive purchases. They're buying upfront a bigger amount. Now, that doesn't answer the question as in, is the shortfall sorted now? Probably not. But actually what we're doing is we're putting in place that it shouldn't happen, and we're having trigger points where if we get to beyond so many boxes, we know that it takes, I don't know, 2 months for blue sacks to arrive. So we know that 2 months sacks is roughly a run rate of X a week. So therefore the trigger goes off to allow them enough time to place a new order. But we're gonna hold more. Bristol Waste are gonna hold more stock too. So that's one thing. And it should lead to significant improvements. But it's all these sort of little processes which haven't necessarily been there. But now with the way that the leadership has changed I'd said since February and March, they are becoming more process driven. And what we need to do, linking back to my comment about students, is how do we start to build data and touch points to identify the different needs of different parts of the sort of service, so that we know with greater clarity which streets have a high density of students, or where there is a certain need. And so if you take Fix My Street, that's giving the council far greater detail on where fly tips are occurring. We can heat map now, and we can identify things, and also we can audit in real time how well Bristol Waste are performing against some of their KPIs. And we have had a few issues around the crews closing jobs because they can't do it there and then, and we're having to do a bit of training to make sure they don't do that, because it's natural compulsion to close it, but you shouldn't. Sorry, went off on a bit of tangent there, James, but hopefully that answered some of the question.
No, that's very helpful, Ken. And yeah, that trigger point sounds like the kind of improvement that I'm hoping to see. So thank you. Nicholas, over to you.
Thanks. A question about some of our processes at BCC. How do you recommend that we report a missed collection? There are 2 options that I'm aware of now, which is using the council website, but I do that when my own collection is missed, and it has never made any difference. And the other one is councillors emailing the councillor.mp inquiries, and that's got a 2-week turnaround time, and by which point the thing should have been collected anyway. So it's never really worked for me.
So yeah, what I would say is, I mean, you can report a miscollection on behalf of someone, but there is an element of if someone is just raising a miscollection, you need to encourage them to report it on the council themselves. So the first point is, okay, that's great. Please report it via the council thing. I'll take it away this time, but you've just sort of got to put it on them to take responsibility. And council inquiries is isn't a best way to report a miscollection. If there's a repeat issue, so Martin has some and Fee also has had like those sorts of issues where you've got cars blocking the entrance to roads and the road keeps getting missed and it's a systematic issue, or there is just a staff behaviour issue. We take that's when you should come through to the councillor inquiries, because I'll pick that up and I'll allocate it to Bristol Waste, or I'll allocate it to other members of the team, or I'll respond myself.
So the web portal, though, as a citizen, I've used it, and I can look at the things that I've reported, and I can see that at least one of my collections has been missed every single month for the last 16 consecutive months. That's just what it's like living where I do. My waste doesn't get collected. And having reported it every single time, I've never noticed someone coming picked it up the next day. It just doesn't make a difference. So I can't, in good conscience, recommend that to my constituents, because I know that the system doesn't work.
Well, in that case, like if you're saying that you're Bristol Waste, if a miscollection has been reported, Bristol Waste should collect it within 24 hours. One of the things that we are now looking at is it's like the final thing to do to improve is we are looking at software systems to improve the front end. So what we want is the capability for you to have a dashboard that you click on and you can see what your service should be, when your next collection should be, and also before you report a miscollection or a drop road, there should be something pushed from Bristol Waste to say, sorry, we didn't get to your street today because the vehicle broke down, or sorry, we couldn't get down your street because car parking was blocking the road. We will get there, and it's a message to alert. We're aware of your issue. We haven't done it. So we want to be more reactive and pushing alerts through to residents so that they know that there is a cause for it. Because one of the things, speaking to the CSE team and you as councillors are probably well aware, you're exasperated because you're like coming up with a plethora of reasons why over the last year the collections weren't occurring on time, and you're saying, well, it's because of this or that and blah blah blah. Actually, going forward, because we're sorting out some of the systematic issues, it should be down to more direct consequences, which Bristol Waste should push through to the residents, because what we want to do is keep them informed and reduce the need for them to feel that they have to contact the council. Now, for your details, what I would say is Teams me your address so I can look into the fact that you've been dropped that many times, and we can try and sort out the issue that is causing your property to be continually missed.
I just live in a terraced house in Clifton. There's nothing special about my address. It's the whole road gets missed every single time, and it happens at least once a month. And then there's just one more circumstance then, and I don't think we've quite covered, is when a resident has emailed, they're quite distressed because, say, they've been missed, say, 2 or 3 weeks running, and waste is really building up. And that's something that I want escalating, but sending it through the council MP inquiries with its 2-week turnaround, that means that there'll be a month without. So is there a quick way of escalating problems that need fixing fast?
The quickest way to escalate like that is to raise it with me. So I have a number of councillors that message me, and don't get me wrong, I don't really want all 70 of you email me all the time, because then I might break. But what I would say is, if you have a scenario like that where it is a very acute issue, I do receive emails and then I pass them on. Now, what I do is I escalate Bristol Waste to look into it, get the supervisors engaged, clear the waste or the recycling, and try and knock the resident to let them know that it's been resolved. I may not come back to you, and quite often when Martin's had similar issues with this, I haven't gone back to Martin, because I just try to get the issues resolved. Now, that is one way. You could follow it up with a council inquiry, so that they're both at the same time, if you see what I mean. So you Teams me the detail, you email me the detail, but you put the same text in your council inquiry, and then you'll get a more formal response. So it depends how you want to do it, but that is the best way. What we find with when you email Bristol Waste Direct, they have issues where their complaints team have to manage the complaints, they have to manage it within SLA, and that becomes a challenge. And then also, we as a council don't know what they're dropping and what the issues are. So there is the way that the information flows helps us get a picture of the issues. So yeah, I suppose I've given you an option there.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Thanks very much. Right, we've got 3 more questions. I'm not going to take any more questions after this because I'm aware that time is slipping away, and we need to move on to the rest of our agenda. So if we go to Emma now.
Thank you. Thank you. That was really helpful. You're probably aware we had an issue in our ward in Derby Road, and it was like kept reporting it, and it kept not, So I'm hoping that is resolved now. So that's useful to know that escalation process. Something I just was thinking about, and I know that people from Parks aren't here now, but when we were talking about particular areas in our ward that could be maybe used for sort of green space or greening up or sill projects. When it comes to fly tipping, if there are any sort of hotspots which are sort of mapped as a sort of continual sort of, they're attracting fly tippers for whatever reason, is there a way that we can sort of identify those spots within our wards and then maybe think about, well, is there something we can do with that area that, it could be, I don't know, planters or, dot scooters or something, or just do something in that specific spot to sort of discourage fly tipping. There's a couple in my ward. I'm actually where I live, sort of just down by the Arches on Gloucester Road. Behind there is always just absolute fly tipping, and I was just thinking, well, that's such a nice space. Something could actually be put there to maybe discourage it.
So I would say definitely, that if you want something like that, you can one of the things that we have as a team, we don't have a budget to do any preventative measures or deterrence. So if you identify something like that, we could come up with proposals. So for example, Clonmore Road off of the Stapleton Road, there's a green patch which is highways land, but it isn't part of the highway, and there was a lot of fly tipping, there was a lot of vehicle parking, there was a lot of antisocial behaviour in general, you can imagine, in that area, and it allowed access to hedges and trees and stuff, and that enabled them to do more fly tipping. So we actually put boulders in to stop the access to the green space. So there's that sort of physical thing, and if you ask us, and we've got someone in the team that can assess that, and then we can use previous quotes. The other thing I would recommend, and it's all that thing about linking with nature, is about trying to use sill money to make it a community garden, or
that's what I was thinking.
Give some community ownership to the area, because then they don't feel it's abandoned and an easy place to then fly tip. And actually, could you have some gates? Can you have some fence? Can you do some planting like pyracantha, that sort of thing, to then help? And that so we can look at options for that as well. Although we would probably then refer to the parks, and you may need a community group to take the ownership. Obviously, the fly tipping in that area would then fall with us. But if it's being owned and not neglected and ignored, then you get the less likely chance of that sort of thing happening. Bath have done it in a few of their places. If you know Bath, the Wigcombe, just the other side of the train line on the other side of the river, there's been an area where there was a lot of waste that just get residential bag waste used to get part, and they made like a flower bed area, and then there was an area where vagrants would go in, get rid of all their rubbish and leave alcohol bottles and all that sort of stuff, and they've invested in digging that out and opening it up so it's not such a hidey hole, and actually doing lots of planting. So there is that sort of thing, and that I think has been done through sill money through the local Wigcombe Trust. So there is definitely the opportunity for that.
Great, thank you.
Okay, great, thanks, Ken. Over to you, Caroline.
Mine, going back to bins. One of the problems that we've had frequently is that if you report the missed bin within your 24 hours whether it appears on the list of missed collections or not. If the next day the catch-up collection doesn't happen, which frequently doesn't, if the collection's on the Thursday or the Friday, it doesn't then come in, and then you're left the whole week and people haven't got any updates. So then they end up just leaving it's often recycling. They leave their recycling out all week because as far as they're concerned, the recycling collection could happen at any time. There's no way to report again if your catch-up collection doesn't happen. So if your collection is supposed to happen on Thursday, you go in and report it before the end of the day Friday, and then it doesn't happen on Friday, you're stuck. There's no way to tell anyone other than the councillors that it hasn't happened. And every time I've actually had that happen, it's then gone the full week before they've had a collection. So when the IT system is upgraded, will there be an option to report whatever day? And the push out, will that include, when your catch up collection is going to be?
The system, can't say everything it would do, but I was looking at a system yesterday, and what we're trying to do is make it. At the moment, they use a little bit of electronic stuff in the cab, and it's paper sheets for like assisted collections and lookouts and all that sort of stuff. What we want it to be is georeference, so it links to the place and it says this is what you've got to do. This is your workload. You need to complete it, and then there's a tick button for the completion, and then we can. Then Bristol Waste Management or supervisors and service managers can then review how they're progressing in the day real time. And so if that has been dropped, that road could automatically, looking at the system I was looking at yesterday, they could go, right, okay, Cromwell Road, move across, that's for this crew to collect tomorrow. And then it's there for the crew to then tick off the following day. At the moment, there is a bit of a clunky system where it relies on reporting back, and then you put it onto, they collate it into Excel spreadsheet, and then they put it onto the web page. So we need to unpack all of that, make it one system that reports through, and then it pushes information to the web like a user dashboard that would say miscollections today, should be collected tomorrow. So we could put in the should be collected tomorrow, and then if that round hasn't gone out on the Friday to collect, it should be then reallocated again to another round for whatever reason. And we're talking, this is the reality of what we've had to put up with, but it's not definitely where we want to be. This sort of investment in software will help manage a lot of this. So actually then you would push it through, and then there'll be another alert. We haven't collected. Your collection day will be over the weekend or on Saturday. But if you've got any of those roads where that has occurred, email me, because what I will do is I will put them on lookouts for the crews to make sure that we don't get repeat issues.
Okay, thanks.
All right, thank you. And then over to you, Stephen, and then we will let you go, Ken.
No problem.
Yeah, I'm not sure area committees is where we're supposed to be discussing general bins policy, but you've let us do it, James. So, I mean, Nick was being quite polite, I think, about how the system doesn't work at the moment. I think what councillors really need, excuse me, is an alternative to the MP councillor casework portal, because it simply isn't responsive enough. We need some sort of direct, whether it's internal council, but that will be overloading UKen, or whether it should be somebody at Bristol Waste who can receive stuff direct from councillors where there is a particular problem, and then there is an onus on councillors not to abuse that situation for routine problems, because there's never going to be 100% compliance on a particular day. But if there are hotspots of places that are repeatedly missed, which are the ones I escalate to a director in Bristol Waste, and that tends to be when they sort it out. But that's not how the system should work. We shouldn't have to escalate to a director of Bristol Waste just because we happen to know who they are. I'd rather there was a dedicated person inside the company itself that is aware of what the problems are, and maybe we copy those to you so you could see that they are learning from them. Because that's the frustration with them, that they do often repeatedly mess up the same locations, and that shouldn't be happening.
Yeah,
But
it's good. No, you are right. There are times that they repeatedly miss up the same collections, and that shouldn't happen. And one of the things that if they escalate to me, when I've escalated, sometimes I've had a look at the properties myself because it's such an acute issue where it's been 4 recycling collections on a way, and there was one place, I think it might have been Clifton Redland border, where there was quite a grand road, lots of little drives off, and there was just one driveway where it was 2 houses set back, and with the change of the crew, they just didn't see them. So they kept driving down the road, and even when I was looking on Google Street View, I couldn't identify where that property was. So we had to send out. So I then went, this is a real issue. You need to send a supervisor and walk the street because that thing. Now, when you go through to the complaints team direct, you may not get that triaging, but I will take it away and review what we can do, and then come back with an update for yourself and Nick, so that you've got more of a place, and then I'll talk to Martin and maybe just disseminate some information from there. But I'll see what we do, because we do have an old email address that we use within my team that would have a team looking at it. Could we use that to then triage it and then respond? But I just need to assess it. Just need to think it through properly, because I don't want to over promise and under deliver.
it is extraordinary, though. It's like the emergency services. I mean, years ago, I used to go out with the police, fire, and ambulances privately on shifts, and it's not that long ago they were using A to Zs to find their way around Bristol. Obviously, they've moved on from that because of technology in the last decade, but it sounds as though our waste collection services are still stuck in a technological cul-de-sac.
I wouldn't. They're not that bad. It's just there needs to be reinvestment. If you see what I mean, the system, there is a pergamentum, I think is the phrase, isn't it? Waste in, waste out. And
say data transformation does cost money as well.
Yeah, it costs money. But Bristol Waste, if they need to invest in this to have the system ready for the future, and they are acknowledging that, and that's brilliant. I suppose one of the problems and it's rehashing old ground, but when there was the reroute that happened in October, November 23, it was rushed. And so when they did the data cleanse, that was rushed. And when they allocated it to the staff, that was rushed, and they didn't actually capture all the information they needed. So over the last period, they've been capturing more information. Now, the thing that we've stressed through the bit I'm doing, which is the front end, how can we improve this? What systems do we need? Could it be one system? Could it be a bolt on the front that sits with the council? But the bit that's been highlighted to me is we need Bristol Waste to keep refining the data that is on Alloy which is their UPRM based tasking system, just to make sure that it's correct. And so there's been a lot of that work, but what we probably need to do is we do have issues where there was assisted collections where that data didn't transfer, and also roads where you had to reverse down and do some certain things and all of that. So we do need some work. And then I suppose the thing in Martin's area is, and a lot of other areas across the city, which isn't necessarily so much in Westbury and Trim, but we're coming up with a list of roads which are significantly impacted on because of parked vehicles. It sounds like an excuse, but believe me, when you look at some of the streets and you try to remove the vehicles have quite big overhangs at the front and the back, and so when they twist, it's quite easy to crash cars. I did visit one site for free hands because it was getting missed routinely, and the residents wanted them to reverse 100 meters down the street, but the clearance on either side of the vehicle was less than 30 centimeters. I wouldn't like to do that in my car, and I would probably have 50 centimeters either side. Do you see what I mean? Like, there is an element of you're asking them to do something which is creating risk of road, like we call it road traffic accident, but hitting someone's car, damaging car property, risk of reversing over people because you shouldn't reverse backwards on a big lorry because of the blind spots, kids running out, that sort of thing. And so it's just about Martin's keen to try and address some of those systematic sort of issues that we need to do to improve the service. And if we do it as one batch, then it's financially more affordable, and it's do it once and move on. Anyway, I've waffled enough. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Ken. And I'm sure we'll speak. Well, we'll speak on Monday, actually.
Yeah, we'll do. Cheers.
All right, cheers. All right. Who would have thought that councillors really wanted to talk about bins? Okay, so we've got a couple more agenda items to go. So we've got other department updates now. Julia, I understand that you've got one or two lined up. Is that correct?
Just one. Thanks, James. And that is from Pete Anderson, Director of Property Assets and Infrastructure. It's regarding the community asset transfers. There is no new surplus. They are soon taking a paper around for disposal, but this relates to commercial area, and there are no new community asset transfer updates or applications from the Community Asset Transfer Board. That's it.
All right, fantastic. Well, I trust that that hasn't triggered any questions. Wonderful. Well, thank you very much, Julia. Okay, so we'll move on to agenda item 7, our penultimate item. So the discussion of local priorities. So I think Josh touched on this briefly in the transport, but we are coming up to a kind of a new round of SIL funding. And I think it would be good to have a bit more of an open discussion that the officers can make a note of what we are kind of hoping to see in the near future. In particular, keeping in with the idea that we've got a new round of SIL. We've passed stage 1 SIL forms, but we have yet to do our stage 2. And obviously we've got some financial constraints as well. So there's quite a lot of factors at play there. Did you want to add anything to that, Julia, or no? Fantastic. Yeah. No. So just to kind of give members something to think about, we've approved well over our current SIL funding pot in stage 1. So stage 2, we will be looking at what we will be taking ahead and what will unfortunately not be getting funding in this round. Added to that as well, we've obviously had the fallow year. Now that sounds like managed to allow for a bit of catch up from the transport teams, but it has meant that we have not had any applications for transport. If we were to approve all our funding that we have, and then next year we want to really prioritise future transport projects in our area, we may struggle to do that without some of that additional funding coming from elsewhere. So it's just something that I'd like kind of members to think about when they're considering what they would like their priorities to be. And just another thing to think about as well, in future we have the option to hold our in-person meetings certainly throughout the area. There is a list of requirements. They have to be accessible, they have to have toilets, a couple of other things off the top of my head that I can't remember. But if any member wishes to kind of hold a meeting out in the community, out in the area at all, that can be something to think about as well. So with that kind of brief, if I could open it up for some further discussion, if there's anything that people would like to kind of raise now as something that they would like to prioritise in future, that would be great. Martin?
Yeah, sure, thanks. I'm conscious of time, so I'll try and be quick. Yeah, so I mean, I did say this last time, which is that if in the fallow year for transport, all the money gets allocated, then we'll have nothing left for transport, and we'll start with zero, and we get so little every year. We're in danger of being at zero. So, I mean, there are a lot of long-standing proposals and requests, I should say, we've had from residents in Redland Ward, such as traffic calming on Berkeley Road in Redland, the junction that I mentioned earlier at Gloucester Road, Zetland Road, the sort of speeding and so on that goes on Cranbrook Road, notwithstanding the fact we have a crossing at one section of it. There's also a steep downhill section where traffic speeds up southbound. So there's issues along Cold Harbour Road as well that needs some solution, which is quite difficult to envisage, I must say. So I'm wondering how we can get those put forward as soon as possible and still have some funds to work on them. Thanks.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point, and well said, and obviously a great list that you've already compiled.
Oh, that's just a few that come to mind immediately.
Yeah, off the top of your head. Yeah. No, it's a very valid point, and I will say that some of these questions will need to fall at the policy development committee level. You know, whether that's transport, public health and communities, economy and skills, and the like. But yeah, I think that we certainly, as a committee that will see limited development over the next few years, will be one that would really benefit from external funding streams.
Yeah.
Emma?
Yeah, I mean, as you know, similarly to Martin, we've got ours has nearly always been traffic calming measures, Church Road, Longmead Road, South, where's it, Somerville Road, Brindleton Avenue, all looking at things like that. So I think this idea of external funding, you know, one of the things in that myself and Councillor Coombs have talked about in transport is seeing if we can get any of the next tranche of the CRSTS, which is not called CRSTS anymore, to be allocated to look at those kind of ward ones, which probably we'd be fighting over such a small amount of sill to be able to do them all. So it might be that they need to be done in a different way. So that's something that's always been ongoing. If it's looking for those projects that are smaller amounts, like I was just saying to Ken, I think looking at those areas that may be prone to fly tipping and doing things like community gardens or planting in those areas to discourage fly tipping, I think would go down really well, because it would be sort of solving a problem as well as improving the area, and is probably a little bit more realistic to look at than sort of creating lots and lots of low traffic measures across the ward for very little money. So I'd be quite interested to sort of investigate that idea.
Thank you, Emma. Stephen?
It was just say, sorry, I've got to go in a second, as does Nick and Caroline, actually, because we've got another meeting at 6:30.
Oh, that's fine. I mean,
I think we're hopefully stopping soon.
Yeah, I think we are. If anyone had anything else that they just wanted to flag in terms of future priorities, or okay, well, in that case, the only last thing that you would have missed was the date of the next meeting. So that's provisionally scheduled for the 30th of October in a couple of weeks' time. It's provisionally because of, as I said, there is the choice that we could choose to move it to a community centre of some kind within the area. But if you'd like to do that, Lauren, is there a deadline on when we would need to know that answer by?
Yeah, soon, very soon, please.
Okay.
Because we have to organise it, and we have to make sure the space and book it, and we have to. Julia would be the team that would have to book all of that and arrange it with you. So, we usually have to visit as well. So, yeah, it takes a bit of doing.
Okay. Well, yeah, so if anyone has a particular burning desire to move the meetings out of City Hall, then if they could kind of let themselves be known for ASAP. Otherwise, I will probably see you all on the 30th of October in City Hall. But with that, I will draw this meeting to a close. So thank you very much for your time, everyone. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thanks a lot. That's been helpful.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.